Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Jose Candelario Show, where we dive into the news in a day like a dolphin into an unsuspecting swimmer's legs, swiftly, unexpectedly, with a little bit of pain. But hey, at least we make it entertaining. We've got a wild ride tonight, so buckle up because we're about to take you from corrupt lawyers to drug-dealing cops to airborne sourdough and dolphins with a mean streak. So let's get right into it. First up, in a courtroom drama that's juicier than reality TV, we've got Tom Girardi, the disgraced lawyer from former Real Housewives star. That's right, the man who once took down big corporations with the power of justice has now been taken down himself for stealing from the very victims he promised to help. Apparently, Tom was doing this on his own version of Robin Hood, but instead of stealing from the rich and giving to the poor, he was stealing from the poor and giving to himself. It's a classic mix-up, right? Now, after being convicted of embezzling tens of millions of dollars from his clients, including families of accident victims and burn survivors, Girardi could be facing up to 80 years in prison. But don't worry, he's still got time before sentencing to think of new excuses like blaming it on his Alzheimer's, which prosecutors say he's exaggerating. Greatly, by the way, greatly exaggerating. I mean, come on, Tom, the only thing you're forgetting is how to be a decent human being. Maybe instead of playing Aaron Brockovich, you should have stuck to playing nice with his clients. But hey, at least now he's got a new audience. Prison inmates, just don't ask him for legal advice. Moving on. Speaking of people who really misunderstood their job descriptions, meet John Abel Baca, a former Inglewood police officer who apparently thought his badge was a license to distribute cocaine. Yes, folks, this guy was supposed to protect and serve, but instead, he was dealing drugs like he was auditioning for Narcos in Inglewood. Now, Baca got caught delivering over 2 pounds of cocaine to a federal informant, and he's been sentenced to more than 2 years in federal prison. In case you're wondering, he wasn't just any cop, he was part of the drug task force. That's like putting a fox in charge of the hen house, except this fox was selling eggs on the side. Baca admitting to abusing his position, stealing drugs from the police department's lockup and selling them. Honestly, the only thing more surprising is that he didn't blame it all on a bad patch of paperwork. Nice to know that even bad guys can have a side hustle, right? Too bad his side hustle landed him on the wrong side of the law. I guess the only drug task force he'll be part of now is whatever they've got going on in the prison kitchen. And now let's talk about the drug that got everyone talking, Ozempic. That's right, the miracle drug that's supposed to help with diabetes and obesity, but at $1,300 a month, it's also helping you lose weight by making your wallet a whole lot lighter. Novo Nordisk CEO says that the high cost is actually saving taxpayer money in the long run by reducing obesity-related healthcare expenses. Oh, really? So I guess if you spend a small fortune now, you'll save big later. That's like telling someone, you should go out there and buy yourself a $10,000 treadmill because it'll save your future gym memberships, assuming you don't give up on your New Year's resolutions by February. But don't worry, Novo Nordisk isn't gouging Americans. They're just generously charging us 10 to 15 times more than they're charging any other country. That's because, our healthcare system is just more complex. Or, as I would like to call it, more profitable. And with Senator Bernie Sanders breathing down their necks, Jorgensen has volunteered to testify before Congress. Yes, volunteered, right after Bernie threatened to subpoena his boss. Nothing says volunteer like the threat of legal action. Meanwhile, while some of us are out here hustling to afford our overpriced meds, Gen Z is taking a very different approach to the work-life balance. They're calling in sick, not just when they're under the weather, but when they're feeling, over everything. Yep, sick days are on the rise, especially among young workers who are prioritizing their mental health over their jobs. And I say good for them. Who needs to burn out by 30 when you can just take a sabbatical and come back refreshed, right? Just make sure your boss is cool with it or at least doesn't have access to your Instagram stories while you're recovering on the beach in Tulum. But seriously, this generational shift is changing office culture. We used to have lunch breaks. Now we have mental health breaks. And honestly, I'm all for it. Just make sure you leave some sick days for the rest of us, all right? And finally, folks, what do you do when you're bored on a flight? Watch a movie? Read a book? How about bake a loaf of sourdough bread at 30,000 feet? Well, that's exactly what one social influencer did on her flight to Spain. Yep, she whipped out a mixing bowl, flour and some water and sourdough and started right there in her seat and got to kneading, because nothing says like in-flight entertainment like a little gluten production, right? Now, some people loved it, call it creative and unique, while others pointed out that, it's a little gross, considering how many germs are floating around on the planes. Plus, if you have a gluten allergy, that would have been the very start of a long, bumpy flight. But hey, at least you didn't try to bake it in the cabin's microwave, because you know how that would have ended up, with a huge explosion, if you catch my drift. Now, around here, we like to tackle big issues of the day with all the seriousness they deserve. Let's dive into the topic that has everyone from your tech-savvy cousin to your paranoid uncle losing their minds: artificial intelligence. Yes, AI, the magical, mystery, terrifying technology that's either going to make our lives a utopia or enslave us all under a robotic overlord named Siri. Let's jump right in, shall we? Yes, the future is here, and it's brought to you by the same people that can't get your GPS to pronounce boulevard correctly. But don't worry, because in just a few short years, they'll all have perfected the world domination. Or at least, that's what Hollywood will have us believe. Let's pump the brakes a little bit on the fear-mongering for a second, shall we? Now, I get it. AI is a big, scary concept. I mean, you've seen Terminator, The Matrix, and whatever 80s dystopian nightmare you've dusted off on Netflix. The idea that robots could rise up, overthrow humanity, and take over the world seems pretty terrifying. But let's break it down, and maybe we can figure out if we really need to stock up on canned goods and start building that bunker in the backyard, which I already started digging a hole, so it's too late for me. This, my friends, is AI in a nutshell. Everyone's talking about Skynet and self-aware robots, but in reality, AI today is more like the second robot. It's advanced, sure, but it's also clumsy, prone to error, and is about as likely to take over the world as your Roomba is to win a marathon. So what exactly is AI? Artificial intelligence is basically a fancy way of saying we've taught a computer to do stuff that you usually use a brain to do. Same thing. But it's like when you teach your dog to fetch the newspaper, except the dog is a machine and the newspaper is, well, everything from diagnosing diseases to recommending you a movie where the actual dog survives. Oh yes, these are the robotic overlords we should all be terrified of. The ones that can't even understand the difference between play jazz and order me 10 pizzas. Imagine trying to plan world domination when you can't even get to the Bluetooth to pair correctly. You have robotic uprisings where robots spend more time buffering than actually taking over. But let's get real for a second. AI is a tool, a really smart, powerful tool. It's being used in all kinds of cool ways. For example, in medicine, AI is helping doctors detect diseases earlier than ever before. It's not trying to kill us. It's trying to keep us alive longer, which ironically means that you have more time to worry about AI killing you. And in entertainment, AI is suggesting what you might like to watch next based on your viewing habits. Ever wonder how Netflix knows that you're into documentaries and serial killers and cooking shows? Well, that's AI at work, folks. Sure, it's a little creepy that your TV knows you better than you know your own mother, but hey, at least we're never bored. So, is AI all good? Well, no, of course not. Is it all bad? Again, no. It's like a friend who's super helpful, but is also kind of annoying. You like having them around, but sometimes they drive you nuts. AI helps us solve problems, automate boring tasks, and even makes our lives a little easier. But it's not perfect. And like anything powerful, it can be used in ways that aren't so great. Take, for instance, AI and surveillance. Some governments are using AI to track people's every move, which is a little too big brother for my comfort. But then there's the whole issues of bias in AI, because surprise, if you feed an AI biased data, you get biased results. It's like teaching your dog to fetch, but you've only ever shown it how to fetch your slippers. Now it thinks fetching slippers is the only game in town. Except in this case, instead of slippers, is important stuff like who gets a loan or who gets flagged by the police. Look, AI isn't coming for your job, at least not all of them. It's not the Terminator, and it's not HAL 9000. It's more like the intern who's really good at Excel but still needs you to check their work. AI can do some tasks really well, but still needs human oversight, creativity, and judgment. And the idea that AI is going to suddenly become self-aware and decide to wipe out humanity, well, let's just hope that we're not there yet. Most AI today is about as self-aware as your toaster. Sure, it might burn your toast if you're not careful, but it's not plotting your demise in the process. So before you start lining your hat with the tinfoil, remember, AI is here to help, not hurt. It's not perfect, but it's not without its challenges. It's far from the apocalyptic nightmare you might imagine. It's more very eager to slightly clumsily assist you, and they still need a little guidance, to be honest with you. It's not perfect at all. So relax, take a deep breath, and maybe just unplug the Alexa at night if it makes you sleep better. And remember, if the robots do rise up, well, at least we'll have some great content for the next episode of the Jose Candelario Show. Thank you for joining me today, folks. Until next time, don't fear the robots. And, they're just trying to figure out how not to walk into the walls right now. Please tell a friend to tell a friend that if you like this thing, and please subscribe. And until next time, you know what? Have a good life.